We can get video.
Yep, we have video. And we have audio.
We're ready. Well, welcome to our first podcast in the series of Behind the Remodeler. And I'm excited about what this can be. And I have with me Justin Bravo, who has been consultant for me for a good long while now. And Justin has been the inspiration, along with Morgan, who's going to be seen and heard in some of these podcasts as well. But you guys have been really with me the whole way, and you've helped me to see the importance of a podcast that has substance.
Absolutely. Well, hey, Keith. Hey, podcast listeners. It's exciting. You've been doing a radio show for how many years?
15 years in August.
15 years. So now we're moving on to podcast. It's a new digital frontier for you. How do you feel about it?
Well, it's makes sense to me. It just really makes sense that we start telling people what we know in this business. Sometimes I guess I've always taken it for granted. I know you've kind of pointed that out, that I've taken for granted what people need to know and hear. And I'm trying not to think outside the box now.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that your knowledge base on this market is insane. Like, it's absolutely insane what you know, and you probably don't even realize all these little intricate things. As we go out and we're filming vlogs and we're doing other things, you can really quickly see that, I learn every time I film. Every time I go out with you, it's like, how this joint should look, how this should be, what product to be using here, and to be able to share that in a long format on a podcast is going to be valuable.
Well, I appreciate that, and you're the one that's helped me to see through someone else's eyes what we do and all that's involved in it. Again, I grew up in this business, not because of my parents being in it or anything like that. I grew up in it because it's what I wanted to do from a very young age.
Absolutely. Well, what's funny is, I think I asked you this a long time ago. I said, when did you know you wanted to be a remodeler? And you said something very similar.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to get into construction by the time I was 12. And I really wanted to do something physical and create whenever I knew that by the time I was 12. I remember going into the shop classes and things that we had a little exposure to in our middle school, and that kind of told me that this is something I would really like to do. I mean, I was doing printing. We had offset printing. We had mechanic shops. We had carpentry shops, and the teachers in there were really cool, and they probably were some of the inspiration. But the physicality of that type of work, and this, was a manly job for me. I thought it would be something I would really like to do. I think I had too much pent-up energy anyway.
It's
so
testosterone in your body, man.
I think there definitely was some of that, and it goes right along into the idea of being an entrepreneur. I know that I wanted to. I wasn't thinking about, okay, you're going to have your own business at that point. I just wanted to do the job.
Absolutely.
But the thing that I realized is I don't want to just do the job. I want to do it right. And I want to be the best at it. When I was very young, I wanted to be the best at it. I viewed everything as a competition in my whole life. Whether we're doing tiddlywinks or whether we're digging a hole or whether we're out there in a sport, a real sport. I mean, I can take losing. I don't like losing in a sport or a game, but I have got to give it everything I have, or I'm going to be really, really disappointed. And if you're a team member with me, you've got to do that, or I don't want to play.
No, absolutely. No, I know you are extremely competitive in everything, and I am too. So I really appreciate that. That's something I think we've always gotten really well along because of that. I'll tell you that, kind of talking about entrepreneurs, it always seems to me that there's like two types of entrepreneurs. There's the entrepreneur that their love is business. Their love is running a business, and they don't really care about whatever that business is.
Yeah,
they'll move on.
Those.
They'll move on from product to product. They'll start this one every few months. They'll start a new one. They don't really care. They care about just the business part of it. You seem to be the entrepreneur that is the entrepreneur out of force, because you really love this market, and it's forced you to become an entrepreneur in that respect, and someone who really wants to just build in the building industry.
Well, that may be a lot of truth to that. One of the things I have learned about myself is that I thought for a long time I got into the perfect nature of business because I loved it so much, and that I had such a passion for it. But after really looking at it closely, I've told myself that you really would have done the same thing no matter what you got into. And it's because I am kind of so into the details that I think that that's why I stayed with where I'm at. A lot of people have tried a lot of different things, and maybe it's short attention span or whatever reason that they get bored with it. But I think it has a lot to do with endurance. And I do have an endurance type of personality that I don't give up very easily, and it's almost like that word almost doesn't exist with me. You just keep fighting through it because I want to win. And to me, the more I invest in something, and even though it might be getting harder, I'm thinking I just put more into it, and I'm about to put some more into it, so why in the world would I turn around now?
Yeah.
And that's not the way everybody thinks, I've come to find out.
No, not at all. In fact, you're so detail oriented about the way you run KM Builders. It's insane. Like, it's the level that goes on here. I've never seen, and I was in the industry for a while, and I saw how everybody runs things, and we rely on so many people because the machinery of the remodeling business, of a remodeling company,
It's complex.
it is so complex.
Definitely.
And you have to rely on a lot of people, and I know you've put together a good team that you do rely on, but you don't allow there not to be checks and balances.
That's right.
You check in on everything, and you
Even
really,
redundancies.
Oh, it's huge, and that's why you've been. How many years have KM Builders been around? I mean,
Well, 34 years.
Yeah,
A little over 34 years. We did about 6.5 years part-time, but we kept it in business the entire time because I did a 6.5 year stint at, it was almost 7 at USAA. And that was good because I learned a lot of business skills from being at USAA, working in the project management department there. But you're right. I mean, it's a very complex business, much more so than the average entrepreneur that wants to venture into whatever gas.
Oh yeah. I mean, I imagine you probably, like, there's a part of you that has to say, man, I wish I only did granite or cabinets or one piece of it,
Yeah.
because dealing with it all is so complex. There's so many things that can go wrong, and to try to foresee all that happening and prevent it is
Yeah,
insane.
At one point in the business, I know a lot of people start multiple businesses, but this business has such a wide spread. I mean, there's so many things you can do in remodeling or in construction if you want to get even broader, or and so you can do everything from commercial to residential and new custom homes and so forth. And at one time I've done all of those, but we have started narrowing it down somewhat. So we became specialists in remodeling. And one of the reasons that I realized that that's what I needed to focus on was because it was so diverse within itself. It has so many aspects to it, and but we weren't really touching all aspects. So I said, you really do like your hands in a lot of things, but look at all the things that can be developed further in this business. So I realized that was probably a better move for me than to focus on doing something else. Like for a while there, I had an air conditioning company because I just saw it as being a natural weave to what we were doing already with clients. And it still would have been a good one. We had a plumbing company and an air conditioning company. But one of the things I've seen is that it was a little bit outside of my real detailed expertise. Now, another business owner might have said, I don't need to know any more about it than you do, Keith. I can even know less about it and run that business. But it didn't satisfy me, and it has more risks when I don't know it as well as I do what I do in construction and remodeling. So we continue to grow in our knowledge of air conditioning and plumbing, no doubt about it. And I'm not ruling out the opportunity in the future to go ahead and grab those two businesses and make them fall in line with our remodeling company and add more diversity and a little more value to the business. But it is something that has to be very careful. We at one time had our own in-house concrete crew too, and just like that form of the business, it was very difficult to have the right person managing it. The same was true of plumbing and air conditioning. You have to have the right personality. Someday we may get all three of those back into this company, but right now, after the economy downturned and the Great Depression, we didn't have enough regular work to justify keeping those type of really high quality employees here all the time.
Sure.
So we haven't done that again, but a lot of the reason has to do with the attention to detail that I want to give it. It's got to be running so good and so smooth for me to be proud of it. And there are challenges in this business every day. A lot of people don't want to admit it, but I'm very open about that. We have so many challenges that hit us every week in this business, even though we know more about it than anybody else does in this city. And I know we do.
Well, you know, it's interesting that, you know, so I've been in the business for a dozen years, and what I've seen is most remodelers don't have all these dedicated in-house employees.
No.
You know, they don't have that level of control because, you know, and I get it, because the nature and the workflow of the remodeling business, we don't always have jobs coming up next week and next week and next week. So you end up subcontracting out every aspect of your business till you truly are just you as an employee, and that's it.
Keeps it a little less complicated for you on the running the business side, you might say.
On the business side of things, absolutely, because, you know, then if, you know, we don't have a job next week, that's fine. I don't have to pay anybody next week. But what y'all have done is, because you've cultivated this huge crew, it allows you the flexibility, but also the control of everybody. And do you think that's what's kind of sets you apart?
Definitely. As you describe it, I think of the headaches of running the business the way other people run it. And for me, the headache comes from feeling good about what I've offered you as a client. I just couldn't feel good about knowing that I don't know when the crews are going to be available.
Well, you know, and that's incredible. It's funny because, you know, people always talk about how, well, you know, no, I've worked with this crew for a dozen years, but yeah, but that crew's still not your employee, so you don't know who they're hiring, who they're bringing in, and you know every aspect of who's on your job. You really don't, even though you've been working with a crew, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are not hiring.
You don't have control. I mean, you may have some influence. At the very best, you might have influence. But the bottom line is you're not going to have control. And no one's going to have that type of control like we do. Because we have so many in-house employees, team members, that do everything from the design to consultation, you know, all the way through the finishing touches. So we've really, really got a handle on being able to deliver on what we promise. And I think that's one of the things that I am, you know, again, you've helped me to see that not everybody's exactly like this. That commitment to me is just so big. I don't feel comfortable selling something that I don't already see a way that it's going to be produced. And there are many people who can sell something and they say, we'll figure it out later. There's many people who start a business and they say, we'll figure it out later. And of course, many of them say, well, you know, I figured it out that I didn't want to do it. So they start something else. That is not me at all. I am thinking about it, meditating on it every waking hour, nearly. I mean, there's something going on, but especially at the beginning. Now I can honestly say that I can relax. I've built it to the point, and that I can be relaxed in my relaxed time. Now I may work 12 to 14 hours a day, sometimes 16, but when I'm done, and I've given it my very best, and I know that I can't really do a whole lot more about it right now. Tomorrow morning we'll tackle the rest. I've got things assigned. I'm a delegator, and people respond well to me when I ask them to get something done. And I hold people accountable. And so I do get very, very good response. Now, it's taken years and years, decades, to build up people who respond to that. You have to know that you're giving a person a job that they can actually handle.
That makes a lot of sense, yeah.
And that's through tried and tested methods and getting the right people for the right job.
I'll tell you where I was really impressed with a lot of when you visit job sites, is the education. You know, to me, like, you know, a lot of remodelers I've noticed, it's like, say you have a drywall crew out there, you'll say, hey, listen, I want you to do it this way, but that's just because that's the way I want you to do it. Your approach seems to be more because you really are truly cultivating them. You want to kind of empower them with that education, and you normally I would see you do it this way. The way KM does it is, you're going to do it this way, but this is why we do it this way, and this is why that's important, and this is how you should look for problems, and this is how you should, I mean, you really, there's a huge education. A lot of your job visits, you spend a lot of times educating and making sure that they not only know the reason why they know what we're doing, but the reason why we're doing it.
Right. It is part of my personality to teach. I've been a teacher in more than one venue. Besides the business and the ministry and so forth, I've been a teacher for decades. And you know, but I've been doing this business since I was 21, and before that I was running a crew for another builder. and I did that for since the time I was about 19. Ran crews, and even before I was officially the crew leader, you know, I thought I was running the crew
Yeah,
before that
yeah.
because I thought I could do it well enough to tell people what to do. They didn't always agree because I was a young, crazy guy, you know, that was trying to
young
prove
buck.
myself. Yeah, I was trying to prove myself. But
That's the
now,
whole point of the podcast, right? Though I mean, and really all the stuff that we've been doing, the vlogs, and I mean, I feel like I've overwhelmed you. Like, you know, I've talked about, you know, what we should be doing is this, and we could do this, and we could do this, and do this. But I think at the end of the day, really,
am I responding though?
you are, absolutely. I mean, I think that's what we're trying to do is take that education that you're doing at a small level with employees and on the radio show and doing what we can to broaden it beyond the 210, you know, which, you know, if y'all are listening outside San Antonio, 210 is the area code, but really taking it nationwide and talking about, you know, what people can do to improve their homes and improve their lives and their families.
Yeah, you know, I'm not doing this as you know, Justin, to gain popularity. When I started the radio show, it was the same thing. You know, it's the largest talk radio show in the San Antonio and surrounding areas, and it does go very, very far in the United States from one end to the other because of being a clear channel. But I wasn't doing it so that I could be popular. I really had a passion for telling people the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I guess that's what people know about Keith Moehle is that he tells it the way it is. And I tell people all the time, I'm going to tell you what you need to know. It may not be what you want to hear, but it's what you need to hear. And I do that on the radio. I do it in person. I do it with employees. I do it in personal relationships too a lot.
That's
I
true.
try to tone that down because it's not my venue to tell people how to live their lives. But when it comes to this business, people who seek out advice, they should get it straight. They should hear it the way it really is. And there's so much misinformation out there that it personally, you know, irritates me. That's putting it mildly.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to show that passion. I want people to know that there's a really valid reason to be passionate about doing it the right way. There is a lot of money and emotion that is invested when people do things the right way or the wrong way.
Well, I think you bring up two things I think that are interesting. One being that there are arrogant people that believe they know everything about everything, and that's not you. You really, I mean, the stuff you know about, you are very strongly convicted to teach and talk about. But the stuff that you know that you're not strong in, I mean, you will go seek counsel and bring that experience in so that you can be knowledgeable about it. I love that about you because there's so many people just think they know it all, and they think that is a broad brush they can do everything with.
And I'm not sure that they really think they know it all. I mean, a lot of them just want to act like they know it all.
Maybe that's what it is.
You know, there's probably both categories. You're
Yeah.
probably right. And either one of those is kind of hard for me to imagine.
Yeah.
How in the world, if you've delved into this business or most other business at all, get your toes into it even, you're going to know that there's way more to learn in this than you ever thought. I would never recommend somebody go into a remodeling business.
It's humbling.
It is. It's, you know, and I am so grateful that I have been willing to learn because it has benefited me in so many ways. I mean, I don't know where I would be if I did have that obstinate personality that doesn't want to learn or thinks that he's always right. No, I mean, everybody who knows me knows that Keith wants to always be right. Yeah, I mean, I do. I want to be right. I want to do what it takes to be right, and I want to invest the time to be right. That's part of winning. I want to win. I want to win at this business. I want to win at everything I do, but I want to know the facts.
No, I think the thirst for knowledge is amazing. I mean, I do a lot of website stuff for CAM builders, and even if I'm talking about, you know, I'm gonna do something on the website that involves some series of code or something. You want to know what that code is. I'm like, well, you know, in my like, let's not waste your time there. Like, there's
Yeah.
a lot of other things you could be doing, you know, but
Right.
but you really want to know everything. You want to know how it runs, how it works, and I think that's
At
probably,
least well enough to get an overview so that I'm not in the dark about something.
it makes a lot of sense.
You know, and then it's, for me, honestly, Justin, it has a lot to do with building trust.
Mm-hmm.
You show me why something works, now I can believe you.
Makes sense.
And I've done that in every aspect of my life. You know, even current events. I want to know how is that really valid or not.
Mm-hmm.
But I give a lot of credit to learning how to be a better manager and bringing in really, really valuable people, because those valuable employees, architectural, design staff, accounting, you know, all the different aspects that we have in our company, they have educated me. they are the ones that continue to educate me on processes that we can improve in, and what they've gathered from their history and their experience, maybe somewhere else, and what they see with their education, and what the education they've gotten elsewhere, and the education they've received here, how they put those together, because they all have a unique perspective and something unique to offer. So we have team meetings, and those things are brought up. We've made some really, really great changes over the years that I honestly wouldn't have done on my own. And just last week's meeting that we have on Friday at 10:30, I told them that I thanked a couple of employees, team members is a better way to call them, our team members, for one of the ideas that they brought to us. We now have an introduction show and tell meeting for people who are thinking about going into this process, into KM Builders, and it has been instrumental in easing people into it and helping them to see a lot more detailed aspects than I can do on my first consultation. So it was a great thing that they came up with, the team came up with it. They presented it to me, and I was like, okay, we can try that, you know, we can. I'm not going to oppose to it. I don't think I need it personally, but I think it'll work for some situations. And literally, I've just backed off, and we do it that way every time now because it's so low pressure. We don't want to put pressure. I've never been a high pressure salesman, so this is just one example of how a team brings you an education in details. And I've learned a lot about architecture and design from the team. And I keep trying to increase my knowledge through certifications and classes and so forth as well.
I think that's amazing. I think your ability to pivot based on experience and knowledge is pretty awesome, because you see a lot of businesses of this age that they kind of are set in doing things the way they've always done it, and that's not KM Builders. I mean, there's a part of it you're set in a way to do it, that the stuff, that the quality and the craftsmanship, but you know, that you're willing to pivot and adjust things to what works, and that comes from feedback from not only, you know, team members, but also from employees and from clients and
Right.
your actual customers.
You know, there's a lot of products that are changing in the market, in the industry, and one of the big changes that we had to pivot on was our marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And so this has been a huge change over the years in from the traditional marketing. And a lot of remodelers are traditionalists. They like to stay with, you know, I used to say it's nice to be in a business where the person that comes out of college will not know more than I do about it. But if I was in computers, that might be the case. I know that's not entirely true, but I do feel like even with the changes that are going on, and I'll admit that it's a lot faster than it used to be, I still feel like the wealth of knowledge that I've gained through the experience is hard to duplicate. And it's not just in business, because that's kind of something you learn as you go, but the growth of knowledge that I've experienced in the construction industry with how things can be done better, and it really has come through the team members that we brought in, and I feel really privileged that we attract the best team members in this city.
Very top talent.
And I know why. It's because of our reputation. And so that reputation that you work so hard at, you strive at, to be detailed, to do a good job for every client, to leave them satisfied, to leave them happy, and to feel like you took really good care of them, despite what any challenges may have been on that project. That reputation, and even with the way you deal with people in the industry, has really come back after decades now to make people feel safe coming in, applying at our wonderful company.
Now, earlier I said there was two things you had brought up. Now, the second one that I think is interesting, and I think that you've been a big ambassador for our industry, is the black eye that is contractors. I mean, there are a lot of bad contractors out there. There are a lot of people doing bad work, and for someone who has such high integrity and is doing things the right way, I mean, how do you feel about battling this image of contractors out there in the public?
As you know, Justin, I take it personal that when people do things wrong in this business, because it hurts people, it is tough to recover from somebody who took advantage of you, either financially or emotionally or all the above. I mean, it really is a lot of ways that it hurts people in this business, and I hate to see it. I mean, I feel like I want to be a savior for people in this business. I've always kind of had that protectionist thing, you know, to see somebody else getting hurt. There's a lot of things that I can take, but when I see it happening to someone else, it bothers me way worse than if it were happening to me. And so that's true in life in general for me, but it's very, very true about these products and projects that are being done left and right by people who don't care or don't know enough to care, and they're just ignorant about running a business like this and what it takes to give people good service. There should be a whole lot more restrictions and licensing and requirements that are for someone to enter into this business, but unfortunately there's not here in Texas. And
I mean, it's really like next to nothing.
no,
I mean,
it's so easy.
It used to be that you just pay. I mean, it used to be tough where you used to have to take a test and blah blah
Right.
blah. Now
It's gotten even easier.
From my understanding, I mean, maybe you tell me if I'm wrong, but from my understanding, right, the current state of affairs in San Antonio, as long as you pay like $100, $200 and get fingerprinted, you're a contractor.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, they do have a test. I mean, a thing you have to fill out, and I believe you appeal to a board, but it's nothing like San Marcos has a really good test. You go into a classroom for the
Sure.
better part of a day and take this test, and of course I took that and was qualified as a contractor there. But if that were done all across the state, because they have absolutely no way you can bring in any cheat notes or anything
Yeah.
in there, and it is through the knowledge that you have, and you don't know what it's going to be.
And it's shocking, really, how easy it is. I mean, even like there's no like continuing education units, the CEUs that you see in other disciplines where like
Right.
contractors are educated on new things. It's not. You have to. There's some great professional organizations that you've been presidents of and members of that kind of help with some of that stuff, but it's definitely not a requirement.
It's not required, that's the thing, and that's why we recommend, some of these things to our listeners, is make sure they're part of these, because if they're not participating, then they're not doing above what's required, which is not very much. So you're right, I have a passion for revealing it, even on our radio show, we talk about lame contractor of the week, we wanna tell people, and another part of my personality, which Justin, is I'm very bold. I'm not shy, and that's part of telling it like it is. And if somebody's not doing somebody right and they're taking advantage of them, I want to help bust them.
Absolutely.
I really do. I want to make it right. So the purpose of this blog, this podcast is going to be to let people know more detail. So many people want to yak about things, but they just repetitive, and it's very surface only. We're going to delve deep into the details and have some real substance. That's what I wanted on the radio show when I started it 15 years ago, and we've done that. If there is one thing about me that is consistent on everything I do, and I'm specific. I don't like vague. I want to know the details. If somebody's giving me a report about something, about the project, I want to know. If you're relating a conversation, I'm gonna listen so intently that if you miss a detail, I'm gonna figure it out, and I'm gonna ask you, what about this? And some people like that, some people don't, but it's the only way that my brain works.
No, man,
is with detail.
I'll tell you right now that isn't this going to be an amazing thing? Because I don't know how long we've been talking, but the radio show, we've had 6 commercial breaks by now.
Yeah.
To be able to get right into it and talk in a long format, I think is going to be great to go into that detail and
I
talk
agree.
about all the different aspects. But speaking of you talk about the lame contract of the week. Now, I think this is fantastic because it really shows how personal Keith takes all these projects. Who was a lame contractor of your week a couple weeks ago?
You know about that. Huh? Yeah, it was me. It was me, because I disappointed a client, and I'm happy to say that they're very happy again, and we've restored that feeling of disappointment. Part of it was through explanation and realization of all that we were doing behind the scenes, and they've really, I mean, we're having an open house there, so
Yeah.
so we're going to be guests at an open house.
They can't be too mad, but no.
No, they're delighted, but I take it so seriously that we don't want to disappoint anyone.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was telling my fiance about it. I said, who goes and has a huge radio program and does a weekly segment about lame contractors and names himself the lame contractor of the week because he took something so personal that probably is on the grand scheme of things, like probably nowhere near as big of these contractors that are taking money or building things wrong or really messing things up.
No.
And
No,
for
you're
you,
right.
For you to do that, I think shows a lot about who you are as a
Well,
man.
I'll be honest. I mean, the real truth is that I was bothered by it. I was bothered. I went in. It happened. I had a conversation the day before, and it was still deep on my my brain. It was really bothering me. So whenever I came to that section, I just kind of unloaded and shared it with the audience, and hoped too that the client would hear it, that I felt really, really bad about how they felt. I mean, I didn't feel it was 100% accurate, but I nevertheless, it's how they felt, and that really, really
I don't know if they
bothered me.
heard, but someone else did. Didn't someone else call in right after that?
Yeah, one of, I didn't know who it was calling in, and they called in like normal and said, you know, you may be the lame contractor, but you're the only contractor we're ever going to use. And then I hung up, and I was like, wow, okay, I think you know what, I know who that is now. And it was like, it was funny, but it actually did lift me a little bit. And one thing that people will hear, hopefully, and I know they felt it through the 15 years on the show, and in this podcast, I hope people realize I'm going to be harder on myself than anybody else will, and we want you to be hard on your contractor, whoever you choose, because you're paying good money for this, and you should get details. It's not like HGTV. And if somebody's making you think they're going to give you what's on HGTV, then make them do it.
Absolutely.
I'm going to tell you a little more realistic view of it, but at the end, it's going to be way better than what we're seeing on HGTV or anywhere else. It's going to be way better. You're going to invest a little more time and emotion and energy into this, but you are going to get something way better. And I'm going to make sure of it. And I promise people that they're going to get the results. I mean, with the experience we have, our purpose-driven format through the beginning to the end of this project, we're not going to fail. We're not going to fail. We might disappoint a little bit and then recover, but it's very rare that even happens because we are monitoring the situation all the time. And this podcast is going to show some of those details of what we're paying attention to, what you should pay attention to as a client.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's interesting because there's this whole remodeling emotional roller coaster, and it's something that even if something goes flawless, it really doesn't go flawless. There's pitfalls that happen throughout a project, and they're natural. You know, I mean, there's some stuff that's beyond the control. I mean, you've got tile that can be delayed on shipping. It's coming from Italy, or you got granite that's having to be fabricated and it shipped, during the fabrication. I mean, stuff happens, you minimizing the stuff that's going to happen.
Right. And the thing is that it doesn't happen very often. It is very rare. But when it happens to you as a client, it doesn't seem rare. If you get a drive-by shooting in your neighborhood and it's the first one ever, it feels like I want to move out of that neighborhood, right?
Yes.
I mean, so it doesn't matter how random it is when it happens to you, and we understand that. We're not going to sit here and tell a client that, hey, you don't understand. All of our other jobs are going really well. It's only you that's having a problem. That wouldn't make anybody feel any better.
Yeah.
But realistically, I mean, I got to say that most people that we do business with are reasonable. They really are. Almost all of them are very, very reasonable. You get 1 out of 100 that are unreasonable. So I don't have a problem with that. And yet I hear contractors all the time telling me how hard it is to deal with the public. And I'm thinking to myself, well, only 1 out of 100 are unreasonable. It sounds like all yours are unreasonable. How could that be? And I know what it is. After I think about it, after the conversation's done, I'm like, why are they so negative? Well, the reason they're negative is because they haven't learned how to contain things. They haven't learned how to measure their risk on everything that they say and do, and set the proper expectations. But then make sure that you have the tools behind to deliver on what you've promised. Mm-hmm. And so there was always the theory and the quote here of under promise and over deliver. Now we don't under promise very much. People think we're promising a lot. In fact, everyone tells us that what we promise and the bar that I set when I meet you on the first consultation is higher than anybody else has set. So I tell them, I said, why would I tell you all these things that we're doing different than all the others? And they're like, I said, do you think I had to let you know that we were, what we're doing? And they said, well, no, nobody else is saying those things. I said, that's exactly right. What I'm telling you is what we do every day. So it's fresh in my mind. I'm just telling you what we're going to do because we do it every day. And I don't have to go wonder after I have a meeting with anyone, how are we going to make that happen? How am I going to just deliver on what I just said? It's just what we do every day. So I am proud of what we do. And I'm proud to be able to share some of those aspects, a lot of those aspects through this podcast. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I was a little nervous about it at the beginning, but you've reassured me, and Morgan has helped me tremendously. Having you two as a backup on this, and seeing the importance of it that you both have emphasized has really made me excited about our future podcast behind the Remodeler.
Yeah, I knew it was important to you. I knew education to the community and people potentially remodeling their homes, or right now remodeling their homes. I knew that was important to you, so we knew this would be a good vehicle for that. It'd be a good opportunity for you to share that knowledge and empower the people and give them what they need to know, what the pitfalls of remodeling, and maybe because sometimes I know that you've gotten people call in and ask if your contractor's doing it right here or there, and you don't always say they're doing it wrong. There's a lot of times you will say, actually, that's the way you do it.
Or these are the results of doing it that way, and that's a natural end result of it. And he had to do this to make this look good, or sorry you didn't know about it, but that's what has to happen.
It's such a complex process.
Yeah.
All the things. So sometimes I think that where a lot of contractors are not very good at is the managing of the people, and I mean the actual customer, the end, the client, is educating them and knowing what's going to go on, how it's going to go on, because there's such different schedules through drywall crews, electricians, and products coming in, and materials, and dealing with all those different things. Some people decide just to keep their clients completely in the dark on that stuff, so they don't want to know it. But when they do that, then they're kind of guessing, and you don't have to do that because you really manage that with them really well.
I've used the term orchestration a lot, and I think it's not completely inappropriate. But I thought about another analogy whenever we were talking just now, and orchestration is usually something that's pre-planned, and it goes off just like it's planned, and the maestro directs each part of the orchestra, and it goes off without fail because they're trained, and it's going to happen exactly as it was written. It's not so much that way in remodeling. Although we orchestrate, and I use that term all the time, and we sit behind the scenes and making sure that the pieces are coming together, it's really more like jazz musicians, because there's a lot of intro, there's a lot of bringing it in from this side, and then this guy's taking over now, and that's what a lot of people don't realize about this business is there are times when if you only have it in your mind you're going to do it one direction, that you're going to have big gaps in your scheduling. But if something else can be done, that's going to make a client a lot happier. And so we have that flexibility built in where if this can't happen, we can do this instead. And we may have to cover it up later. We may have to put something over it. We may have to protect it. But we can get this done now. We can do first coat now, do the second coat after that comes in. We can do two coats if that's what it takes, if we don't have the countertop in or something like that. So I view it as orchestration, but it's really more like orchestrating a bunch of jazz musicians.
The ad-libbing
That's
saxophone.
That's right. And so you're not getting a dead spot. Who would want to hear the middle of a song drop off, the middle of a melody with nothing in between, with gaps? And that's what you're going to be okay with. You're not going to complain if you thought the sax was coming in, but now the jazz guitarist is taking over. You're not going to care.
Absolutely.
You're going to be cool with that. You're just going to sip your drink and enjoy it. And that's the way it is with homeowners. If they see that we're attempting to do something else, maybe even what the schedule said, which by the way they get to view online, they're happy as long as they see our effort, and the intensity that we put toward it is really what satisfies people. That way, if there is a little hiccup here or there, they understand because they saw the effort behind it. They saw the intensity. They even see me on the text message, perhaps saying we're going to do this instead, and we'll have them over there by noon. We're going to change gears. I'm on every text message with every client.
Communication and organization is huge here at Camp Builders.
Yeah, it really is. And knowledge that these individuals that run projects, for example, have, or even the craftsmen that are on the projects, how they can ad-lib and say, you know what, I saw this, so I went ahead and took care of it. You know what, let me go ahead and take care of that while I'm here. That attitude and that experience level, understanding that we are all a team rather than that's not my job,
sure,
is huge. But that's what you get when you get subcontractors. You get, if you have too many subcontractors doing a job, you're going to have gaps between them because nobody wants to go over what they were paid to do.
There you go. Now, you've got on the podcast, we've got a series of guests already planned out, because we talk about orchestrating. We've orchestrated a really, really cool panel of people over the next coming weeks. Like, this is
right.
pretty exciting. You've got you've got award-winning interior designers. We've got, I mean, every facet.
Forensic experts,
Oh,
trade experts. We're going to be doing architecture, interior design, different elements of that.
Oh.
We can't cover it in one podcast. We're going to talk about specifics. Maybe, hitting some cool topics that are very local, like what type of architecture, what's trending and so forth, and architecture, interior design, some of the flaws that are happening in construction, what code changes, latest trends and so forth. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun and a lot of detail. Get ready for detail.
Oh, that's cool. And listen, I'll tell you this, with all the guests lined up, I hope that we work a slot for me to come back.
Oh, absolutely, Justin. You're welcome anytime, and we can have 3 people on a podcast.
There we go. There we go.
All right. Well, thanks. We look forward to starting the series, and tune in next week. We will be talking about trends in interior design. Thanks for listening to Behind the Remodeler.